Welcome to Rational Alchemy, though today we are going back to rational politics. Welcome to the Captain's Lounge, and most importantly, welcome back to the table. I'm joined by Shakeel, who is running for Mayor of Longmont. Shakeel, welcome to the table. Why don't you give us a brief overview of yourself and why you want to run?
Thank you so much for having me. This is an incredibly exciting opportunity. I'm a fan of the show. I've watched many of your interviews, and I think that this is one of many venues that really brings out people and their personalities and what their motivations are. So I'm glad you're doing these interviews.
Thank you.
So I am a scientist who is running for the mayor of Longmont because I think that we are in a position where the city has been having problems that have been getting worse and worse over time. Now, there are many great things about living in Longmont, and one of them is the quality of life. But there are some issues that have been getting worse, among them housing affordability, the quality of the environment, traffic safety. And as a result of that, we're not seeing City Council act on a scale that I think that we need to see. And so I believe that we need new people with new ideas and new perspectives. And I think that I bring those because I have a very different background than the other candidates who are running. I'm a scientist, I have a PhD in physical chemistry, and I work at an aerospace company as a propulsion chemist. I bring a data-based lens to understanding our problems rather than just trying to get, a gut feel for something. I think those gut feels are important, but understanding a data-based perspective brings a different lens that I think we need to see on City Council. I've been active in the community basically as soon as I got here. I used to write for the Longmont Observer as the political writer. During that time, I moderated 12 city council debates, and in 2018, I moderated a debate for the U.S. House of Representatives between Ken Buck and Karen McCormick. I've also served on the board of the Longmont Community Foundation for the past 5 years, and that has been amazing to get to see that side of our community and the many incredible nonprofits that make this community a place where we offer people a hand up and a way to improve their lives or a way to perform service in the community. 3 years ago, I started doing advocacy around housing affordability when I founded Launch Longmont Housing, and that has been a way for me to try and get better policy enacted through City Council. And that was part of the process, I think, that brought me to where I am today, because there are so many practical things that I think that we can be doing in the community to improve quality of life for residents, and I just don't think that our City Council has their eye on that. And so I'm in this place right now running for mayor of Longmont and asking people to vote for me because I think that I have a practical plan to improve people's lives.
I think what's important here is also that the fact that you're I'm going to say this word, so don't get too upset. You're a youngster.
I am a youngster. Sure, I'll take that. Yeah.
You're a youngster. And I think one of the biggest problems of America is they seem to be under the impression that you have to be old and wizened, a bit like me, really. Mm-hmm. You have to be to have a position like this. And I think that's totally wrong because young people bring new ideas.
100%. Because it's certainly important to understand what's happened in the past,
mm-hmm.
but so much of the problems that people encounter as time goes on are felt most acutely by young people.
Correct.
And so we just have a more palpable understanding of the challenges of living in a community than other people do. And I think people forget that young people can do great things.
Yes.
The average age of an engineer in the Apollo program was 26.
Right.
26, and we put the first person on the moon.
Let's go back a little bit in history. Look what Isaac Newton did before he was 27.
Yeah.
And that included inventing calculus to solve a different problem that he was working on.
Yeah, and Newton's a tough example for pretty much anyone to live up to. But, I mean, the scientists that created quantum mechanics were all basically fresh out of graduate school in their 20s.
Yes.
I believe in Einstein's Annus Mirabilis in 1905. I think he was also in his mid-20s, where he basically created 3 fields of science in a year. Yeah. And, it was just the perspective of youth, where he wasn't burdened by every single thing that had ever happened in the past, and he was able to bring a fresh perspective to the problem.
Correct. The younger generation are not listened to enough. Now, it doesn't mean that they're always right.
No, we're wrong about a lot of stuff. We just don't know what stuff yet.
But so are us old farts.
Yeah.
We get a lot of stuff wrong as well. And it's a matter of being able to stand up and saying, you know what, you're right, I was wrong. And you're going to hear that probably more from a young person than you ever are from an old person. Mm-hmm. Especially when that old person is in Washington.
I do think that the age of elected representatives in the United States, on the whole, is just too high.
Too high.
Nancy Pelosi, I think, is a fantastic example of an amazing American leader. Nancy Pelosi and what she was able to accomplish as the Speaker of the House is a model that I think everyone who aspires to elected office should learn from.
Should follow, yes.
But on the other hand, when you hold on to power for too long, you create two problems. The first is that how you got to power and what issues brought you there, those change over time. And if you hold on to power but aren't able to change your perspective, then you just wind up in a situation where you're always fighting the last battle.
Yes.
The other problem is that politics is a team sport, and we should have more than two teams, in my opinion. I think that the current two-party political system it's broken for many reasons, but one of the problems is that when you're the team captain for too long, you don't create a bench of people behind you who can take up the mantle when you decide that your time has passed.
Correct.
Or, unfortunately, if you die while you're in the chair. And when you don't create a true test of leadership is who do you pick to replace you?
Yes.
And it isn't necessarily you designating a successor, but it does have to be you mentoring people around you and saying, this is let me give you some aspect of leadership and see how you do with it, so that, because the cause has to be bigger than you. And if the cause isn't bigger than you and it's just about you, then when you are gone, then everything that you care about goes away.
Right. Right.
If you can't trust other people and if you can't bring up leaders behind you, then the cause, in the long run, you will never succeed.
Well, it'll just peter out.
Absolutely.
It'll just vanish.
It will.
And that's dangerous. I mean, England does have, or UK rather, does have a three-party system. But the Liberal Party has always been the minority party. It's funny because over here, if there was a Liberal Party, I think they'd probably end up as the majority party.
I'm honestly not sure about that.
I'm not sure. It's not something I'd put money on. But when you look at the number of people over here that are sort of middle of the road, they're neither really far left or far right or whatever. They just want what's correct. And I've got a funny feeling that would actually happen, but we'll never know.
Well,
unfortunately.
Well, we might know.
Well, we might know. And also, we could probably have a long discussion on should term limits be affecting Washington. But we're not going to do that for the simple reason that we're here to talk about you. What motivated you to actually say, you know what, I'm going to run for mayor? What was the trigger?
The trigger has been looking at the actions that our city council has been taking over the past 10 years and the relationship between those actions and the size and scale of our problems. The way that people want... So, for those who don't know, city council is not a job that pays really well. You make about $20,000 a year, and actually that's an increase that's going to take into effect next year. City council salaries until then hadn't been raised until the late 90s. And so as a result, the people who wind up on city council aren't doing it as a job, they're doing it as community service. And we value that, right? And we should elevate that. But part of the challenge of that is because it is not enough money to live on, it means that everyone who's doing it is doing it as a part-time job. And that will include me if I'm elected, because just the amount of money.
You have to.
Yeah. And so what that means is you have 7 people who are on city council, including the mayor, who are advocates for a cause that they are especially passionate about, or a segment of the community that they represent or are especially passionate about. And that can be great as long as you have someone in a position who can create consensus and lead them as a group. That person has to be and should be the mayor. The mayor is the named leader of the city of Longmont. They actually don't have a lot more powers than the average city council member. The mayor serves a shorter term, but by virtue of being the mayor and running the city council meeting, their role is to conduct the business of the people. And sometimes that means running an efficient meeting, but in the context of their relationship with the other city council members, it has to be about creating consensus.
Right.
You're almost never going to get 7 people to agree about a complicated issue, but you have to find the places of agreement and ways that we can work forward as a community.
Right.
And that is the thing that I have seen be absent in the past 10 years on our city council.
Yes.
There have been times where they've been able to work well together, but because there's been a failure to create that consensus, that is part of why it feels like so many things that happen in the city are just very scattershot.
Right, right. I've heard there's a bit of a hoo-ha going on about some land swap thingy.
Yes.
And it sounds like a dreadful idea to myself, but what are your feelings about this?
I think that the land swap is a clear case where we should be doing the right thing. And in this case, the right thing is to execute the land swap.
Okay.
So to provide a little bit of background, there are 2 pieces of land on the east side of town, a couple of miles south of Union Reservoir.
Okay.
One of them is called the Distal land, because that's the family that we bought the land from, the city of Longmont. And the other is the Tull land, which, again, we bought it from the Tull family. The Distal land was paid for with open space money. This is the money that we set aside to create the open space program.
Okay.
The Tull land was bought with money from the Public Works Department. The Tull land used to be a gravel mine. If it continues to be owned by Public Works, they'll probably move the fire training center that's on Boston out to there. They currently use it to store clean dirt that they can use for infill in other areas. And they'll probably, they need a place to store Public Works property and vehicles and that kind of thing. And so they'll probably make a concrete pad out there for a parking lot. The Distal land, which is owned by the Open Space Program, is a gravel mine. It is literally an active gravel mine right now. If you go out there and you go to the gates of the Holcomb facility, which is the company that is running the gravel mine right now, there's machinery out there and chemical processing and all this other stuff. What happened is the gravel mine was there first, and then the city bought that land for the open space program with the understanding that in 2033, when the gravel mine closes, it will convert it into open space. Well, but we have another need as a community. A few years ago, the city of Longmont committed to reducing our waste that we put in the landfill. And we want to reduce it by 75% by 2030. In order to do that, a major component of our landfill is food waste.
Yes.
Food waste in the landfill is dramatically bad for the environment.
Oh, yeah.
Because it releases so many VOCs that then go on to be greenhouse gases.
Right. I mean, methane being the biggest one.
Yes, exactly. Because of the urgency of the climate crisis and the moral responsibility that we have to act, the faster that we can get a regional composting facility that will not just serve Longmont, but our neighboring cities, the faster we can stop putting more methane into the atmosphere.
Right.
The fastest way to get a composting facility is to give the Distal land to the Public Works Department,
Okay.
so that we can put the composting facility there, and give the Tull land, which again is no longer a gravel mine, to the open space program. In the process, we will have actually given the open space program an additional 75 acres of land. There's an eagle's nest in the area. We'll actually have so if we don't do the land swap, the composting facility will wind up on the Tull land. By doing the swap, the composting facility actually winds up further away from the eagles. We'll have reduced the amount of methane that we're putting into the atmosphere. We'll have reduced the amount of trash that we're putting into landfill. And we'll have set an important precedent. And that precedent is that if you want to do a land swap between the open space program and something else, it has to be good for the environment.
Right.
And it has to create more land for open space. It is a win-win, 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 win.
Okay,
it's a win for everyone.
To me, this is making an awful lot of sense. And as a side note, I do actually put all of our waste food in the old food bins.
Yeah, the green top ones.
The green top ones. So that's picked up every 2 weeks.
Yep.
Biggest mistake we made was we didn't realize that we should actually keep it in the freezer first.
Oh,
and
yeah.
After 2 weeks in the good old Colorado sun.
Oh, it gets stinky.
Oops.
Yeah.
Well, not just stinky, maggots.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this land swap sounds like a good idea. It sounds like it's doing all the right things. But what stops it happening in the future for anything?
That's a great question. And the people who are concerned about the land swap have exactly that question. So I think that this is a good intentioned question and a good intentioned concern from the citizens of Longmont. The open space program is an amazing investment that 100 years from now we're going to look back on and think of as one of the most brilliant things that we have ever done as a community. And so anything that endangers the ability of open space to fulfill its core functions, which are to protect the environment and prevent urban sprawl, has to be examined carefully.
Right.
The thing that stops us from doing it for bad reasons in the future is the ever constant vigilance of the Longmont voter. And it has to be that way. In a democratic society, there can never be permanent victories. We elect leaders to lead us and make decisions on a day-to-day basis to run our communities because people have other concerns. They need to live their lives. They need to raise their kids. They got to put food on the table. If we have to trust our elected leaders to make the right decision, and we have to trust the voters in the future to be ever vigilant to that concern. The cost of democracy is constant vigilance, and that is how we will stop bad things from happening in the future. We can't stop ourselves from doing a good thing today because we're afraid that someone else is going to do something bad in the future. That's a recipe for stagnation.
I guess I can actually live with that statement, because otherwise nothing would ever get done.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. Every power has a potential downside that is associated with it.
It does.
And it's about who we put in positions of leadership and whether or not we trust them.
Right. Right. Moving on a little bit, traffic safety. Now, I got to admit, I wish the police would do a little bit more with slapping the wrists of some of the cyclists in town. Because as a driver of a car, when I see the cyclist on a sidewalk and I'm driving up to a junction, I have got no idea whether that cyclist is going to be acting as a road user or a pedestrian.
I agree.
And
it's a very dangerous situation for the cyclist. I agree.
It's not just the cyclist, because I know damn well that if I turn that corner and I hit him, it's going to be my fault. It's not going to be his fault. It's never the cyclist's fault.
It's funny because in the community of cyclists, so I'm also an avid cyclist.
Well, you said, yes.
Right? The narrative is the exact opposite.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Cyclists can be killed with impunity, and the drivers are almost never punished. That is what people say in the cycling community. And I think that there is a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B.
Probably truth in both
right?
sides. Yeah.
I serve on the city's professional standards unit, which reviews allegations of police misconduct. And so I know quite a few officers in the community, including a couple of our traffic safety officers. And from their perspective, that situation that you just described is very ambiguous. And so they will rarely assign fault to the driver because what you've described as a systems failure. It is neither your fault nor the cyclist's fault. It is a failure of how we've designed our traffic system. The cyclist that you're describing is probably an adult, right?
Yes.
If
I see a kid on a cycle, first of all, I'm going, why the hell is that 6-year-old on a cycle on their own? That's the first thing I think. And the second one is, I'm going to be ultra careful.
Yeah.
Ultra careful. Because with a kid, you never know quite what's going to happen.
Exactly. And we can come back to the question of a 6-year-old cycling on their own later. But so in the way that the traffic laws work and the way that our laws work is that an adult riding a bike should not be on the sidewalk. That is it's actually not legal for them to do so over the age of 12. On the other hand, if that cyclist is on the street, the level of danger that they encounter is substantially higher.
Much higher.
Because we have not created a road system in our community where a cyclist feels like they can safely ride on the street. Because, again, the rates of injury and death are quite high and the risks are quite asymmetric.
Yes.
If you hit that cyclist, you may kill the cyclist, you may destroy their bicycle, you may paralyze them for the rest of their life.
Correct.
You will also be traumatized in that process. And I don't want to underplay that, but your life is not at risk in that situation.
Correct.
And so because those risks are asymmetric, many cyclists don't feel safe doing so, even though that may be their only way to get around. The costs of car ownership are actually quite substantial. And I think that people don't recognize this because it's not just actually about the cost of buying the car. It's about the cost of insurance and the cost of fuel and the cost of maintenance. AAA says that the cost of owning a car every year in the United States, on average, right, so this is big vehicles and small, is $12,000 a year. In the city of Longmont, the average household makes about $85,000 a year. That means that if you are in the average household at Longmont and you work an 8-hour day every day, the first hour of work every day is just paying for your transportation to get to work.
Right.
Right? And that's a significant burden. Not everyone can afford that burden. We have to create a transportation system where everyone, regardless of age, regardless of ability, has the ability to get around town. And that means for some people it's going to be driving their car because that's their preference or that's their source destination. But for some people, either because they're too young or they're too old and it's not safe for them to be driving anymore, or they don't have the money to be able to drive, we have to provide other options. And those options should include walking, biking, and a robust public transit system.
Yes, I agree with that. It's funny because some roads in Longmont are set up for cyclists, but the major roads are not. Which has always surprised me a little bit. It's funny, actually, because when I was growing up, it was explained to me very easily. You're on a bike, Nige, probably weighs in at about 300 pounds with you, versus a car that's probably going to be weighing about 2 tons and goes a lot quicker than you can.
That's right.
Always, always make sure the car knows exactly what you're doing.
Yes, you have to be predictable.
You have to make sure that you can be seen. I am sick and tired of coming down, say, any of the roads, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, and there's some guy or girl dressed in all black on a dark-coloured bicycle, and they got no lights. What's this thing over here about no lights on a bicycle at night?
Well, it's because bikes don't come with lights by standard, right? So we were
buy one.
Well, I agree with you, and I've been riding a bike as a primary mode of transportation for almost 15 years now.
Yeah.
And every bike that I own has a light. But again, this is a difference between how we treat cycling as an activity and how we treat driving as an activity.
Yes.
Most people are drivers, and so we regulate cars more. We require cars to come with lights. Yep. We don't require that of bikes because...
Why? That doesn't make sense to me.
Because our culture treats cycling as recreation, not transportation.
Okay, so you stop recreationalizing yourself when the sun goes down.
Well, sure, and this is and partially this is about like infrastructure, right? And so, for example, e-bikes almost uniformly come with lights.
Yes.
Because they have a battery built in. It's almost silly not to put the light on there, right? And so, if we can make more people feel safe riding their bike more places in the community, that perception of cycling as for recreation rather than transportation will change because more people will run routine errands on them.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it'll make more sense and bike lights will be more available and more people will just understand the social rules.
Right.
In the United States, right, we almost uniformly provide driver's education to basically everyone.
Yes.
And there they learn about the rules of the road and how to turn their lights on and how to drive defensively. We don't provide that same level of education to people who want to get around by bike.
No. And it's funny, in the UK they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have cycling proficiency.
Yeah.
Where you're taught all this stuff.
And it makes sense because as a cyclist, sharing the road with a car is very dangerous.
Oh, yes.
And I had to learn the rules the hard way by talking to other cyclists and watching YouTube videos and seeking out the information to learn how to bike in a way that is safe to share the road with cars.
Right.
More people need that education.
Yes. When we moved to Colorado, we actually rented a house up in the mountains. A left-hand.
Oh, yeah.
It's the one next to left hand. What the hell was the name of the village we were in? Can't remember. Anyway, driving down the mountain or driving up the mountain on a Saturday or a Sunday was scary because you never knew what was round that corner. And the number of times I was driving up to go home from work on the weekend, and all of a sudden there'd be 5 cyclists all coming down together on your side of the road. Used to scare the living heck out of me. Just ridiculous.
You know what, though? There's an element of this that I think is important to discuss, which is the sense of uncertainty that you had as a driver about the consequences of your actions.
Right.
And
well, see, I used to be a cyclist.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
I started cycling when I was serious cycling when I was probably about 12 or 13. And that went all the way through my teenage years. Even when I could drive a car, I still used to love jumping on the bike.
Yeah. So I was visiting the UK recently, actually, to visit some family who lives there. And if you look at the difference in road design between the United States and the UK, there's a major philosophical difference. So in the United States, car culture became very popular.
Very quickly.
Very quickly. And it meant that so many people were driving and the number of car crashes was dramatically increasing. So they did a bunch of studies and they figured out that you need to do stuff like have really wide lanes and clear sight lines and clear areas so that if a car goes out of control, it's not going to hit something.
Right.
There's a really important unintended consequence of making that your safety policy. By making drivers feel like the road is predictable and boring and that they know exactly what's going to happen, drivers feel like it's much safer to go much faster.
Right.
And the greatest factor in fatality, if a person, whether they are in another car or a pedestrian or a cyclist, the greatest factor in fatality or injury severity is how fast the car is going.
Yes.
And so they've done studies in the United States, and what they've figured out, and this isn't super surprising, is that the more unpredictable you make an environment for drivers, the slower that they drive. And the safer it is both for them and for everyone else. There's an element of like structured unpredictability, right? You don't want to make it unsafe.
Yeah, that covers about 90% of British roads.
Yeah. Because most British roads have a lot of trees and a lot of winding because there was stuff there already. And so they had to navigate the roads around the stuff that was already there.
Already there.
Yeah.
I know of one road runs between Marlborough and Swindon, and it's a road that's been there since Roman times, so it is absolutely dead straight.
Oh, interesting.
And you're 100% correct, because that's the road that everyone sped on.
Yeah.
And the police would literally have speed traps every day, because they knew they were going to be writing an awful lot of tickets.
And this is the other part of it, right? Residents often ask for more enforcement as a way to control speed.
Yes.
But there's only so many police, and there's only so many cameras that you can deploy.
Correct.
At the end of the day, traffic safety is a street design issue.
Yes.
It turns out, and there's lots of knock-on benefits for this, it turns out that if you plant a lot of trees on a street, people drive slower, and pedestrians get shade.
Yes.
Right? And you beautify a neighborhood.
It's win-win.
Yeah, it's another win-win-win-win-win.
Yes, absolutely. Shakeel, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here at the table and us having really the first sit-down little chat like this. I'd like to invite you back to the studio sometime in the near future, but before November.
I would love to be here.
Okay, because obviously we've got a whole ton of other stuff that we could talk about. But Shakeel, thank you so much for coming in today. Thank you so much for doing this interview. Do you have any closing words?
I would love to ask for the vote of the Longmont voter. And the reason why is because we are in a situation right now where Longmont for 150 years has been a very pragmatic, very practical working class community where people could come here to find opportunity and improve their lives. And the people who need opportunity in a community are necessarily those who probably don't have as much money as people who already have opportunity. Because of the way that our community is growing right now, people are losing that opportunity for opportunity. So I'm an immigrant, and we moved to the United States when I was very young, and I give so much credit to my parents for the many sacrifices that they made in that process. And one of them was that my parents, and my dad especially, would drive an incredibly long commute if it meant that me and my sisters got to go to a great school in a community that they could afford. That is how we improve people's lives in this country. We give them the opportunities that they need to improve their lives and the lives of their children. And I'm afraid that Longmont is becoming a community that my parents wouldn't have been able to afford to live in. And where would I be if I hadn't lived in those great communities with those great neighborhoods and the great schools? And I think that that's an opportunity that we should be making available to literally anyone who wants it.
You've summed up a lot of stuff there that I'm 100% behind, really am. And the strange thing is, we were talking to a realtor yesterday at Unity in the community, and she actually said Longmont is still one of the cheapest places to buy in Colorado.
It's scary.
Front range.
Yeah, it's scary that as much as we're seeing working class people pushed out of Longmont, Longmont is actually a leader in this in the state of Colorado.
Yes.
And so it's so much harder in other communities. And a responsibility that we have to ourselves and the people who live here, but also to the rest of the state, is to show how much is possible.
Correct.
and how much we really can do. I was actually at Unity in the community yesterday. It's a great event, and I can't wait to go back for other reasons. But I had a booth there, which was a lot of fun, because it's a way to reach people who aren't necessarily interested in politics,
Correct.
and to hear about what are their concerns? What are the concerns of people who don't know who any of the elected officials are right now?
Oh, absolutely. We can't let this go on for too long, but I was in a fortunate position a long, long time ago where I traveled most of the world. And it's funny, no matter where you are in the world, everyone has basically the same issues. How am I going to feed the family? Am I going to be able to afford to live in this particular house, no matter, whether it's mortgaged or rented or leased, doesn't matter. Everyone is basically the same with the same worries. Anyway, Shakeel, once again, thank you so much for coming in. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
This has been fantastic. I can't wait to come back.
Good. It'll be a pleasure having you back. Thank you, everybody, for watching the show. Shakeel is an extraordinary person and just a wonderful person to talk to. He's brilliant ideas, and I think he would be good for leading a community. I'm Nigel Aves, your host. Welcome back to the table once again, and signing off for the Captain's Lounge Studios. Have a good one.